are listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. Thank you for joining us. Our hope is for you to be encouraged and to connect with God during this message. If you'd like to know more about Thornapple Valley Church, visit tvcweb.com.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all, and Merry Christmas to you. Why don't you do this? Just turn to the person next to you and just look at them and say, Merry Christmas in whatever way you want to, all right? Just do it. Just be you, whatever way you want to. I'm just curious, did any of you look at the person next to you and go, Merry stinking Christmas? Anybody? Did anybody want to, but you decided to be nice? It's kind of interesting, really. So welcome again, and welcome everybody who's joining us online as well. My name is Jeff Arnett. I'm the old guy on the platform. You can tell it's really true when they applaud because you're old, all right? That's called pity applause, and I'm uninterested, all right? It's interesting. I'll tell you something. I think that I accept the aging thing, the growing old thing. I really do. But I will tell you something about growing old. I am not fond of it. I'm going to be honest with you on that whole thing. It's interesting. You know, it's like I'm mostly bald now, and the hair I do have left is mostly just white. So I can't do anything about that. Recently, our tech guy John was telling me that one of the last couple times that I spoke, someone had come up to him and said, Jeff looked really white on the screen. So I had walked up onto the platform right after our senior pastor, Keith. You're like, what am I supposed to look like, you know? So now I'm not only old and bald, I'm shiny as well, and pale. So I'm not fond of that. But I'll tell you one of the good things about aging, and I really mean this, and that is it brings you a long-distance perspective. You see things in retrospect over longer periods of time, and it can be quite dramatic, really, what it means. For example, I've been around long enough to know that a lot of times Christmas seems to, in fact, most people, most of the time, very magical. I mean, Christmas is pretty cool season, the whole thing. You know, there's the decorations, there's the amazing desserts, there's parties, ongoing parties, there's amazing desserts, there's good food, there's gifts. You get to share gifts. There's amazing. Did I say amazing desserts? Anybody hear that? I meant to say that. It's like, and it's not just a one-time thing. It's not just something you have happen, you know, and then it's done. It's a season of it. And so you see, I can see it in people's eyes. You get closer and closer you get to Christmas. It's like there's that magic in their eyes. It's a Christmas season. It's not just kids. It's adults. It's everybody. But then, and most of you have probably seen some form of this, a long-distance perspective tells me that also, that when things go south in a way that it's connected to Christmas, what might be ordinary sadness or grieving that you have to process and deal with becomes what I would describe as crazily outsized. It becomes this massive thing because it is somehow, you know, that which seemed so magical, Christmas, now seems magically to disappear. Like the words in that song that was from, you know, the movie The Grinch That Stole Christmas. This is interesting. This is how the words go. Where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you? Why have you gone away? Where's the laughter you used to bring me? Why can't I hear music play? Was magical, was amazing. Now it's like the magic is gone. It's just magically dark. It's not good. Some of you have been talking about this. It's like you're dreading Christmas because of whatever reason. And it can even be smallish stuff, you know. When I was a kid, I don't know what it was like for you, but yes, I was a kid at one point. It was a long time ago, but I was a kid. And when I was a kid, in my family, there were 3 boys. I was the middle. And the way Christmas morning looked like is that we could come out and we could sit around the tree because our gifts that Santa had left would be in a pile, unwrapped gifts, in front of the tree, and of course mine was easy to find always because I was in the middle, And so we would come out, and it was just like you would wake up Christmas morning. Many of you remember something, you had some kind of family tradition you did like that, and you'd wake up and it'd be like, I get to go see the gifts. It's going to be the most amazing thing, and it's just magical. And I remember one year, so I was getting a little older, certainly not a teen yet, not quite near a teen, but I was getting a little older, I wasn't like a 4-year-old or something, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, baby, it's Christmas morning, going out to see my gifts, and so I go out, and there's the 3 piles, and there's the pile in the middle, and I look down at it, and it's clothes. It's clothes. And anybody that knows me, clothes have never meant anything to me. And I'm looking down at my pile of gifts, from Santa or whatever. I knew it was my parents by then. I'm looking down at it, and I'm like, it's clothes. I can't remember. I know there were jeans. I can't remember if there was like even underwear and socks, adding injury to insult kind of thing, And I'm looking at this, and I get down in front of it, and my parents are sitting there, like they always would, watching for the looks on our faces, of joy. And I just burst into tears. And I'm just sobbing in front of I'm sure I broke my mother's heart that day, but I couldn't help it. It was like I walked out and looked at that pile, and it sucked the joy out of me completely. And I'm like, where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you? Why have you gone away? And why have my lousy, cheap parents destroyed my life? And that was just a little thing. But it's funny how, the magic that we would feel at Christmas can be like crazily built. Some of you listening to this, you're like dreading Christmas this year. You hate the idea of it coming because somebody that you loved, it seemed like they were always there for Christmas, is not going to be there. Now, maybe they died. Maybe there was a divorce. Maybe, it was somebody that you were close to, and you haven't been talking to each other because you got wounded, and so now you don't even communicate, and they won't be there for Christmas. And it's like Christmas is this horrible thing coming up. And you're not singing the words, but you're kind of thinking, where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you? And I want to say to you, I don't know exactly what you're dealing with, but I have a sense of it, and I'm sorry. I mean that with all my heart. Over the years, when people would talk about a struggle that they're facing, I've so often felt like I wish I had some kind of pastoral pixie dust, that I could use to make you feel better. But that's called cocaine, and it's illegal, and I can't use it. I'm just joking, all right? Feel free to write me. My email address is keith@tvcweb.com. I know some of you are struggling, and I can't instantly fix it for you. What I can say, and this won't sound like much, but just hang with me on this. When it feels like the Grinch has stolen Christmas, I want you to just remind yourself that with God, there is always a bigger picture. With God, there is always a bigger picture. In other words, it may look like this, it may feel like this. And this is one of the things, of course, that long-term perspective can give you. But with God, there is always, always, always a bigger picture. Would you say those 2 words out loud with me, please? Bigger picture, bigger picture. Why don't you turn to the person next to you and just say, dude, there's always a bigger picture. Come on, just say it. Just say it. And there really is. See, what long-distance perspective has taught me so many times is I will look back on a season in my life, maybe a year ago or 5 years ago or whatever, where I thought the world was coming to an end. You ever been in one like that? Where it's like, it's a waste of time to even bother. I might as well just curl up and die right now. Anybody ever felt that way? And then in 5 years, you look back and go, oh my gosh. God was totally in the middle of all that I thought was worthless and no good. That's what perspective gives you, is that there is a picture that's bigger than what you can see in this moment. You look at it and it seems dark, but there is always, always, always a what? Okay, thank you for this side. You love God, clearly. You, on the other hand, let's try it again, and let's get 10 people to say it this time. There is always, always, always a... There's a bigger picture than what you see in this moment. Always. There is a bigger picture. This is the way Scripture talks about it. This is what God says. We know, this is Romans 8:28. Many of you have heard it. We know that in all things, God, what's the next word? He works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. This is interesting. In all things, God is doing what? He's working. So that there is always, even though you can't see it, there's always a bigger picture than what you see. And sometimes we just need to remind ourselves and go, okay, wait a minute. I know this is how it looks. I know this seems really bad. But God is always connected to this. There is a bigger picture here. I don't see it yet. I may not see it for 2 or 3 years, but God is working always for my good. And we're going to see that today because we're going to look at the classic Christmas story where the original humanity's most evil Grinch, if you will, tried to steal Christmas. And yet you'll see the bigger picture, and you already know it, is that he simply couldn't. If you want to open your Bible to Matthew chapter 2, you certainly can. I'll put the verses on the screen as well. We'll pick up at verse 1. And this is what it says. It says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi, or what many of us call the 3 kings or the wise men or whatever, they came from the east to Jerusalem and they asked, where is the one who has been born king of the Jews? So we saw a star when it rose and we've come to worship him. Now, when King Herod heard this, well, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had called together all the people's chief priests, in other words, the Jews' leaders, the chief priests and the teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. And their response was, in Bethlehem in Judea. For this is what the prophet has written. And then they begin to quote, but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. And then Herod called the Magi, the wise men, secretly. Now he found out from them the exact time that the star had appeared, and then he sent them to Bethlehem and said, you go and search carefully for the child, and as soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him. Now this is an interesting thing, because those of you who know the rest of the story know that later they found out that Herod did not want to go and worship this child. He wanted to kill him. See, his idea was that if anybody was going to be worshiped, it would be him. So the Magi learned this, the wise men learned this, and they go home by different routes so that Herod will not know exactly who or where this child was. But what happens next in this story, this is the part most of us gloss over every Christmas. But this is part of the story. Matthew chapter 2, verse 16 says, when Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious. And he gave orders to, what's the next word? To kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity, in other words, in the outlying small towns like Middleville and Delton and Hastings, who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time that he had learned from the Magi. This is both horrific and insane, of course. And it's hard for us here in the land of amazing freedom to really even think about. This is why we gloss over this, because we don't want to think about it. Most of us, we have this wonderful image of Christmas. You know, the sweet baby Jesus, 8 pounds, 6 ounce, wrapped in cloths, warm and cozy, lovely, wonderful. It's all just so nice. And that's what our image is. And of course, some of that was there. What we seem to wash out is that back then, just as there is now, there was deep brokenness in the world and evil. And what seems at times like unbearable pain. Now, something incredible would come in the long run from all this. But in the here and now, in the Christmas season, the first Christmas season, there was deep confusion and brokenness and pain on the part of many people. Can you imagine? You're living in that area and they come and kill that little toddler that you love and you watch him run around and somebody comes and kills him. Merry Christmas. See, this is part of the Christmas story, and sometimes I think we forget this because of this crazy, insane dictator that was worried about losing his position. But that's life in a broken and messed up world, back then and now. Right in the middle of something good that comes a Grinch, a hope killer. It seeps in around the edges of our lives like poison, right in the middle of a magic moment, and then there it is. There it is. The Grinch comes, and often the Grinch appears to be this kind of, he's okay, he's fine because he's a liar, but never doubt that he comes, in the words of Jesus, to steal and to kill and to destroy. And some of you this year, maybe more than you've ever felt it or faced it, you're there. This is how the world happens sometimes. Grinches come. And I was talking with someone I know, and he'd been through some hard times in the past, but now he was telling me how good things were with his family and himself, and how encouraging that all was to him. And then he said to me something that you've probably heard yourself. He said, but I can't help but wonder, when will the next hit come? Anybody ever thought that? And I know some of you right now, you're going, that is horrible. Why do people think that way? Why can't you just enjoy it? Why? See, the thing is, I understand why you're saying that, but he wasn't wrong, because the next thing will come. Is that true? We live in a broken and messed up world, and Grinches come, and they come with certain regularity. And some of you are in a season right now, and there is no Grinch. It's all good. It's all magical, and I'm happy for you. I'm thrilled for you. But can I prophesy over you? The Grinch cometh. And it will. We don't know how, or we don't know what it'll look like, but this is what happens in life. Jesus said it this way. He said, in this world you will have what? Oh, come on. In this world you'll have. It's like you can look at the person next to you. Don't say anything. Just, you're going to have trouble, baby. You're going to have trouble. You're going to have it. In this world you'll have trouble. But then he goes on. He says, take heart. I have overcome the world. Can you hear the message? He's saying, yeah, there is a Grinch coming. It's always coming. That's part of being in a broken world. But there is a bigger picture than what you see right now. Don't lose sight of this truth. There is a what? A bigger picture. So the question is then, how do we face these Grinches when they come and they hit our lives? And, you know, this is easier to preach than it is to live, but sometimes they come, they hit us like a freight train. It's so hard. We're going to just look at this Christmas story. We're going to go a little deeper into it. And I think you're going to see some things here that they can be helpful. And they're not going to happen every time to you. God's not going to speak or do the same thing every single time. But I think for some of you, you may hear God speak to you today. I'm going to give you 3 thoughts. And he may speak one of these things to you, and you may go, oh, that hits me. Because there's some things that happen which are interesting. So after the Magi visit Jesus, the wise men visit Jesus, and then they leave. Remember, they're going a different way, so they don't confront Herod, or he doesn't get the information out of them. This is what happens. So Matthew chapter 2. He says, when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph. You remember Joseph, he is the soon-to-be husband of Mary, the mother of Jesus. And he comes with Joseph in a dream, and he says, get up. You take the child and his mother, and you escape to Egypt. Very interesting. Stay there till I tell you, because Herod is going to try to search for the child to kill him. And so Joseph got up, he took Jesus and Mary during the night, and he left for Egypt. Now, as I said, this is not always going to be this way, but you're going to hear things now that may speak to you, because sometimes this is what will happen. When the Grinch hits, God will speak something to you very similar to what he said to Joseph. One of the first things that you may hear him say is that you need to step away from all this. You need to step away from the fray, the battle, the fight that you're in. Now, it's interesting to me that God actually speaking to Joseph says, you take Mary, you take Jesus and yourself, and you escape to Egypt. It sounds like God's saying, I'm scared of what may happen. I'm scared of Herod. You need to understand, this was not an admission of defeat. This was a strategic relocation of a God who knows the bigger picture. And he knows what battles you're up for fighting. He knows what battles you're not going to be up for fighting. And sometimes what God will do is he'll come into the difficult place in your life and he'll say, you know what you need to do right now? I know you think you've been going to win this, you're fighting, but you need to step back and you need to find some rest. You need to step away from this. And some of you may hear this. And I know, some of you are like, I never back down from a fight. I never back down from a fight. And you say that because you're dumb. And I know some of you right now are going, oh, you don't know. Well, okay, I'll back off, all right? Because there are some fights you were not meant to fight. And you're not big enough at this point in your life, or you're not strong enough, or whatever. And God actually will help you circumvent things that you don't need to fight. And sometimes what he's saying to you, we were designed by God to rest on a regular basis. And some of you, you're living such insane schedules right now. And you're being damaged by trying to fix everything and do everything and make everything happen. And it's like it's draining the joy out of you. And you have become, when you should be a joy bringer, you become a joy drainer. You've been around people like that? They come to a party and you're like, I wish they would leave. You ever felt that way? This person walked into the room and every bit of joy I was feeling just got sucked out of me. And it's not necessarily because they go, I want to suck the joy out of everyone and make us all miserable. There may be some people like that, a couple here at TVC, but most people, I'm just joking, all right? Most people are not like that. They're broken. They're wounded. And instead of being able to step back, they feel like they have to just keep fighting. And it's the biggest mistake. Don't forget, sometimes God will tell you to step away from the fray because there is always a bigger picture. Let's say it out loud again. I don't want you to miss this. Bigger picture. I know what you're seeing. I know how hard it is, but there's something you will only see in the future that is bigger, and God is at work on your behalf. And so sometimes you just have to make the decision, I'm going to step away, and then the second thing, and this goes with it, is that you just have to say, I'm going to let God work. You know what? I'm going to remind myself that He's still God, and I'm still not, and so I'm going to step back and let God be God, and I'll just be me. Oh, if some of us could hear that. God is still God, and you are still not, baby. Stop. It's interesting to me that we think that courage means that I will fight this battle to the end. I will always win. It doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes God just tells you, step back, and then you let Him work. And I think about this with Joseph, because God says to Joseph, I want you to take the kid and the woman and flee to Egypt. And he's like, but I'm a man. I'm a man. We don't run from stuff. I can hear Joseph, his phone rings. Yeah, it's one of his buddies. Joseph, my man, how you doing? How's it going? You got the Messiah now with you. You must be kicking butt and taking names. What are you doing these days? Well, we're running to Egypt. Doesn't sound very courageous. But God knows the bigger picture better than you. Come on. He knows the bigger picture from beginning to end. You only know little pieces of it. This is such a cool thing. Can I just say to some of you, I want to say this as lovingly as I know how. You don't make the world go round. You're not that smart, nor are you that strong, nor are you that good. Stop it. Stop it. Some of you have worn yourself down to a frazzle because you think you got to fix. Could you possibly just trust God and say, I'm going to let God be God on this one. I don't know what He's going to do. I don't know how He's going to do it, but I'm just going to trust that He's going to do it because I ain't got it in me. Can you do that before you're reduced to it? Before you're in a nut house? Can you do that before then? Some of you, may be familiar with an AA tradition. It's just a statement that people will say to each other. It's called Rule 62. It's in the recovery movement. People will say this. Anybody ever heard of Rule 62? It's such a cool thing. So back in the early days of AA, when it was just expanding and really getting a start, at a particular place in the country, they were starting groups all over the country, but this particular place, this guy who had been impacted by AA and he was excited about it, he wanted to start an AA movement there in his locale, and so he decided he was going to build this. He had a vision. He was a classic Type A, going to make it happen guy, going to do all this stuff, and so he was going to build an amazing thing. And the idea behind it is that they'd have a rehab center in this complex that people could use for meetings and all this stuff. And he's going to build it, and so it was a lot of complex planning. But what he had a dream and a vision. Of course, what happened was he had to start instituting rules like you can do this and you can't do that. And he actually started a rule book. And he had in his rule book, because he had to keep adding to the rules, which you always do with rules, you have to add a rule to deal with the other rules, and on it goes. He had in his rule book 61 rules. 61 rules. Can you imagine? And everybody had to follow every rule. Do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, all these things. And of course, that flies in the face of AA's philosophy, which is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And it was complex, it was confusing, and it spectacularly failed. Of course, headquarters in the U.S. learned about this AA failure out in this area, and they knew about it. But I guess this guy was a learner. Because what he did was he sent a card to the headquarters with just a summation statement on it. And I'm quoting now, but I'm just going to read what he wrote on it. Rule number 62, don't take yourself so damn seriously. Is that good or what? I know some of you, did you swear in church? No, I just quoted in church. That is not held against you, all right? Don't take yourself so seriously. Stop it. You're stressed, you're worked up. Sometimes you need to take a step back out of the fray and just let God work. This is good preaching. Amen? Some of you needed to hear this. You just need to hear God speaking into you saying, stop. Take a breath. I got this. Because he's still God and you're still not. Which is such good news. Sometimes I think about Rule 62 all the time because I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys that plans and I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to do all that, and then I'll just hear this in the back of my head. Rule 62, idiot. Don't take yourself so seriously, Jeff. Let God work. Step back from the fray. Let God work. Last thought, real quick. Now that you're here, it's wherever you are. Joseph finds himself in Egypt. Live where you are. Live where you are. Some of you, this is going to speak to you because what you've been doing so much of is you've been complaining and you've been whining about your circumstances. And I get it. They suck. But this is where you are. So you have a choice. You can whine and complain and bellyache, or you can live where you are. This is where you are right now. This is what you got. Now, this is much easier for me to preach than it is to live. I mean, even this last week, I got this message prepared, and I'm like, live where you are. I don't like where I am. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Come on. I've been sick for a week. I don't know, and, it's just choose to stop complaining and live where you are. This is interesting because I want you to see what Joseph did. And we already read this, but look what he did after the angel came and told him to escape to Egypt. It says, so he got up and he took the child and his mother during the night and he left for Egypt where what's the next word? Where he stayed until the death of Herod. This is fascinating to me because I don't know this for sure. I didn't know Joseph and I wasn't there, but my guess is he did not want to go to Egypt. I mean, he was from Nazareth, right? So he had family there. He had a business, I think. He was a carpenter, or he had a job. He had all that stuff. Why would he want to go to Egypt? He's got a wife and a new baby, and he's got nothing And now he's got to go to Egypt. He didn't want to go there. But he did because God said to. And then this is what I'm fully confident of, is that while he was there, he got a job, he provided for his family, he worked, he did what he knew to do, and he lived where he was until the day came where God moved it to the next phase. And that day came. And they went back from Egypt to home. And Jesus grew up and turned the world and universe upside down. Joseph didn't know all this stuff was going to happen. What he knew was, God says, you go to Egypt until Herod dies. You don't like it there, I understand that, but you do that. Live where you are. This is so valuable if we can do this. Some of you may be familiar with an artist named Phil Hansen. I'm not a big on art, to me, art is like, I just never see it. It's just out there. But Phil, as a young man, was quite artistic. He loved art. He went to an art school, like an art college, and he excelled at something called pointillism. Anybody ever heard of pointillism? I'd never heard of that. I mean, it's a type of art. And in effect, what pointillism is where the artist simply makes dots. With whatever medium he's using, he makes dots. And then in the end, the big picture scene, when you step back from the dots, is this thing. Now, here's an example of a classic kind of look of pointillism, is that it looks like a painting, but what it really is just a zillion points. It's fascinating. Well, Phil loved it, and he was good at it. And he thought he could be an accomplished artist in pointillism, and that he could maybe earn a living or whatever. And so that's his plan, and he's working at it until one day he began to realize, as he was trying to make points, that infrequently the point wouldn't be a point, but it'd be a squiggle. And then another squiggle. And he didn't know why it was happening. It was like there was a small shake in his hand. And so he got to the place where he couldn't make a point. They were always squiggles. He couldn't do his art. He got so discouraged that he quit art school, and he decided he was done trying to be an artist. That was it. He was done. Except sometimes a dream doesn't die easily in a person. So he said to himself, I got to figure this out. Maybe I can find a way to stop this. So he wound up in the office of a neurologist where they did some tests, and he'd hoped that they could find a cure for this shake. But what they discovered was he had permanent nerve damage. And while Phil is grieving this news in his life that he has permanent nerve damage, the neurologist said to him, why don't you embrace the shake? Now, when I first heard that, and he has an excellent TED Talk, it's about 10 years old, but Phil Hansen, it's just so good. And when I first heard the neurologist said that, I thought to myself, that jerk needs some teaching on bedside manner. You don't tell somebody that's grieving, suck it up. But that's what he did. Now, that was my thought. And then I heard Phil say, and I decided to listen to the neurologist. And I went home and I said, I'm going to embrace the shake. Embrace the shake. Isn't that a great term? Embrace the shake. In other words, live where you are. So he said, I decided, what kind of art can I do? If I can't do pointillism because there's a shake here, I'm going to embrace it. And he found that when he began to embrace his limitations, it began to grow his creativity. And so one day he said to himself, well, if I can't make the dots, maybe I can paint doing something else. He said, what if I dipped my foot in paint and tried to paint with my foot? It's like, well, that would look stupid, right? But it didn't. This is what it looked like. Is that amazing? Or he did that with his foot. He said to himself one day, maybe, what if I only could use my hand like in a karate chop form? So I dip it in paint and then I karate chop the canvas. Is it possible that there could be art? And the answer would be, of course, that's stupid. That couldn't work until he did it. I mean, this guy does stunning stuff because what he did is, instead of whining, complaining, giving up and quitting and saying, I might as well just be nothing, he embraced the shake. And the creativity in his life grew. One day he's sitting in a Starbucks And he says to himself, he's embracing the shake. He goes, well, what if I could only do art with what I have right here with me right now? And he looks and he has a cup of coffee and he has a pencil. And so I said to myself, well, in Starbucks, they'll give you an extra cup if you ask them, sometimes like for insulation or something. So he said, what does it hurt? Maybe I'll just ask. So he went up and he asked them for 50 cups. And he must have been a good customer because they gave him 50 cups. And he took them back and he sat down and he began to do art. And what he created was so amazing. And it looked like this. And he actually used that to raise funds for World Vision. This guy embraced the shake and not only produced art, but raised money to help people who are in need. That is called living where you are. And some of us just need to be reminded, pushing through is not always the best. Step back. Let God be God, because you ain't anyhow. And then just live where you are. Just do the best you know how to do in the life that you have. And instead of whining, just embrace what God is doing in your life, because you know that there is always, always, always a bigger picture. Amen? Amen. And when you look for it, this is all I can tell you, is that when I look for the bigger picture, I so often see it, not even always just in retrospect, but when I choose to look, what is God doing? I see him at work. I see him at work in TVC. I love what God's doing at TVC. We are touching so many lives. People are changing, and I get stories. People tell me stories. I'm not the lead pastor anymore. I'm just a guy hanging out, the old guy, the shiny white guy. God's moving. I love the idea of this offering next week, this Christmas offering. And by the way, you don't have to come next weekend. You can do it online or mail it in or tie it onto the leg of a carrier pigeon and let it loose, and it'll find its way. But those gifts, they will go to touch the hearts and lives of people. Me, I want to be part of that. I just want to challenge you. Step back. Let God work. And embrace the shake. Live where you're at. Find fullness. And it may be a hard Christmas, but there is still a bigger picture. So what's God speaking to you in this time right now? I invite you just to open your heart to him and take that next step. Just tell him I'm all in. Maybe it's to make the decision to follow Jesus. You can do that right now. Maybe it's what you should do in the offering next week, or whatever it is. During this moment, do that, and then we'll sing briefly and we'll be done. God, now, speak, speak, speak. May we be reminded of who you are and what you do. In Jesus' name.
Thank you for listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. If you found this message encouraging, we invite you to share it. For more information, visit tvcweb.com.